Good morning, fellow veterans of Littleton. Last year at this time, we were rededicating the Edgar P. Romley Veterans Corner at Littleton Common. For the world, for our country, for our community, 2020 has been an unusually difficult year. From facing the stress and fears of the coronavirus pandemic to overcoming the isolation and aftermath of quarantine, for some, it might have been easier to forget about today and make a promise to ourselves to make it up next year with a bigger celebration. But I'm honored that you have taken the time out of your lives to help ensure Veterans Day remains a special day. Veterans Day is a day on which we as Americans have a lot to remember. We remember the wars fought to defend, protect, and preserve the freedoms we enjoy in this country. We also remember all those who have bravely gone to war and who have given of themselves so that others could live in peace and safety. And we also remember those who have gone to war and paid the highest price for those freedoms. Those of us who care to honor America's heroes gather together today because we are honoring our sons and daughters, our mothers and fathers, our brothers and sisters, who are serving on behalf of everyone in our great country, just like the generations of American patriots did before them. In November 1941 issue of the VFW magazine, an editorial regarding our forces mobilizing for World War II said, "The people of America are fulfilling their often repeated pledges to the memory of America's honored dead, men and women who gave their lives to establish this nation, and the heroes who have died since 1776 to defend it. They know our democracy will endure as long as we are prepared to defend it with our lives if necessary." Those words have as much meaning today as they did then, and as veterans, we understand that wherever there is peace, wherever there is freedom, there is also a threat to them. And as the decades and centuries have passed, generations of men and women have bravely and selflessly heeded the call to serve. As veterans, we understand that Veterans Day is a day of deep significance of opportunity. To us, it isn't just another day, overlooked and ignored. It's a day to both celebrate, a day to honor the millions of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard men who have selflessly gone whenever and wherever they were called. Veterans Day also continues to be a day of reflection. I've been asked several times in the past to explain what the Veterans Day means to veterans. As a veteran, you would think that I would have the ability to easily answer that question without much thought or deliberation. But in all honesty, when I sat down to write these remarks and answer that very question, it wasn't that easy. I thought of my own experiences in the military, compared to those of my parents and grandparents. I thought of all those I served alongside. I thought long and hard about just what it is that links veterans of every era together, what it is that we share not only on Veterans Day, but every day. I can tell you now that those who have served in the military share common values, and that serving our nation brings with it a special bond that is forged by common experiences. Veterans differ in every way imaginable, but we possess an equal love of our home, family, and country. I believe that each of us has a deeper appreciation for freedom and take a special pride in knowing we have been responsible for ensuring that freedom remains, not just for Americans, but for so many around the world.
A proclamation. Whereas, since the Commonwealth's colonial days, thousands of men and women have served our country in defense of freedom and liberty. And whereas, on November 11th, 1918, the Armistice was signed in the Forest of Compiègne by the Allied nations and Germany, ending World War I, the war to end all wars, after 4 years of conflict. And whereas, since that day, every November, people from around the nation have gathered to honor our veterans. And whereas there are approximately 388,000 veterans living in Massachusetts. And whereas today we are reminded of the great sacrifices and contributions our veterans have made to our country. And whereas we honor and salute those who served our country throughout the generations with honor, patriotism, and courage. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who serve their country, so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. And whereas in November 2020, the world will commemorate the 102nd anniversary of the Armistice that ended the fighting in World War I at 11 a.m. November 11th, 1918. The 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Now, therefore, I, Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim November 11th, 2020 to be Veterans Day, and urge all the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston, this 11th day of November in the year 2020, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 244.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Lori Trahan. As we commemorate Veterans Day, I'm taking a moment to thank you, our veterans, our service members, and your families. Each of you have sacrificed and continue to sacrifice to defend the freedoms that we as Americans hold so dear. When our nation needed you most, you stepped up. You answered the call of duty and you served. While we honor your service and the service of veterans who are no longer with us, we must also recommit ourselves to having your backs the same way you have heroically had ours. That's the commitment I make to you today and every day, that I will do everything I can to ensure that our veterans have the high-quality health care they deserve, to put an end to the veteran suicide crisis that is resulting in 20 veterans taking their own lives each day, and to end veteran homelessness that has pushed those who have bravely saved our nation onto the streets because they can no longer afford to keep a roof over their heads. From the bottom of my heart, thank you to our incredible veterans, our service members, and your families for your selfless commitment to our country. I look forward to continuing our work to ensure that you're treated like the heroes all of us know you are.
Hi, I'm State Senator Jamie Eldridge, very proud to represent the people of Littleton. And I want to thank Littleton Veteran Service Officer John Borowski for inviting me to say a few words for Veterans Day. I'm sorry that we can't meet in person due to the pandemic, but it's so important on this national holiday to thank our brave military servicemen and women from around the country, including those here in Littleton, for their service. We're at a time because of the pandemic, I think we're better appreciating the freedoms we have in our country, whether those found in the U.S. Constitution or those that are facilitated by our state and federal governments. And so that doesn't happen without the men and women in the U.S. military, whether overseas, those that are serving in various capacities right here in Massachusetts. And so I want to thank veterans, including and especially today for Littleton, those in Littleton. Appreciate that your service, your sacrifice, I know that has a big impact on your families, but it is so important for those freedoms. It's so important to take those extra steps to make sure our country continues to move forward. So honored to be part of this Littleton Veterans Day service, and thanks to all those who are involved today. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today as part of this year's Veterans Day. Today, we honor those men and women whose personal sacrifices in our military have defended and preserved our American way of life. The United States has always been blessed with countless heroes who have come forward to serve and to sacrifice. Whenever America has come under attack, you have risen to her defense. You have fought not only to preserve the American nation and her liberty, but over the decades and centuries have liberated many countries around the world, giving them the same opportunity to enjoy the freedoms and rights that we as Americans hold dear. Each year, on the 11th hour of the 11th day, of the 11th month, we pause as a nation and as Americans to pay tribute to our veterans, our American heroes, who over the generations have served our country with such distinction. Veterans Day is a time to stop, reflect, and remember those brave American men and women who have sacrificed so much throughout our nation's history. For many American veterans, it's a special day of memories, as it should be for all of us. It's another opportunity to count their blessings, appreciate and love their families, and to translate their skills of determination and teamwork forged in our armed forces to volunteer and to serve their local communities and their fellow citizens. For our soldiers serving today, it is another potential day in harm's way, another day marked off in a calendar before they hopefully, with God's blessing, are reunited with their loved ones. On this most sacred day, our words of thanks and gratitude are not enough. For it's not only in words that we should honor them, but through our deeds as well. Very often, veterans will not speak openly about their experiences in war. That's why it's on us to ask, to engage, to listen, and learn and teach our children about the enormous sacrifices they have made and the burdens they have bared to preserve our American way of life. Coming from a military family myself, I have felt the honor and the fear of loved ones serving in dangerous lands. To all the veterans and their families listening today, there is no special praise or public commendation that can ever equal the commitment and sacrifice you have demonstrated for this grateful country. I am proud to serve on the Committee on Veterans Affairs in the Massachusetts House of Representatives, and to represent our veterans. Inspired by the veterans in my own family, in our Commonwealth and across our nation, I am proud that our state leads the nation in the number of benefit programs for our servicemen and women. Massachusetts' great reputation and commitment to our veterans did not happen overnight. It has been forged at the grassroots. It has been slowly developed through best practices and input from our veterans and their families, from the greatest generation to the 9/11 generation. Recently, I was appointed to serve on the Special Commission investigating the high number of COVID deaths at the Holyoke Soldiers' Home. Our hearings have demonstrated that through gross mismanagement, 76 American heroes died at the home from this disease. Our hearts broke to hear the emotional testimony of their families who lost a family member at the Soldiers' Home. This should never have happened, and our commission will work to make sure that it is never repeated. We owe our veterans and families better than this. We have to be ever vigilant in serving and protecting those who have served us in our military. So on this Veterans Day, let us commit ourselves to continue to ensure that America's veterans receive both the care and the benefits that they deserve and that they have earned. That we stand with those American men and women who have donned the uniform and stood up for my family, stood up for your family, for our nation, and for our freedom. Once again, the grateful citizens of Littleton come together to honor and celebrate the best among us, our veterans. Thank you for all you've done for us. It'll never be forgotten. May God bless you, your families, and may God bless the United States of America.
Thank you for the privilege of sharing some brief remarks today, Veterans Day, here being recognized in the town of Littleton, Massachusetts. My name is Laura Hoke, and I serve First Church Unitarian here in town. I'm also a veteran of the United States Navy. I served in active duty from 1990 until 1994. I was in the regular Navy, not the Chaplain Corps. 102 years ago today, World War I ended. The next year, 1919, Armistice Day was created as a day to honor the veterans of World War I, then known as the Great War, and as a day to rededicate ourselves to the cause of peace. In 1954, the name was changed from Armistice Day to Veterans Day after World War II and the Korean War, so that the day would recognize all veterans. Unfortunately, in making that name change, the original emphasis on rededicating ourselves to peace was somewhat lost, though it was good to extend the day to all veterans. I believe it's right and fitting today on Veterans Day, in addition to perhaps thanking veterans and honoring veterans, I think it's also right today to take a time for some reverence. Pray if that's your tradition, meditate if that's your tradition, about ending war and the cause of peace. Today, along with many other congregations, my church will ring its bells on 11/11 at 11 a.m., and the bells will be ringing out for an end to war. So today, may we rededicate ourselves to the cause of peace. May we turn our swords into plowshares. May we remember all those who are in harm's way right now in war or armed conflict. May we remember all those who died in war, both armed troops and civilians. May we remember the veterans who risked their lives in war, as well as veterans who never went to combat, but who could have been called upon at any time to go into harm's way. May we rededicate ourselves to the original meaning of November 11th and the cause of peace. May it be so.
Hi, my name is Cindy Napoli. I am the chairperson of the Littleton Select Board. On behalf of the board, I would like to say thank you to the many servicemen and women in our community for their sacrifice and service for our country. This Veterans Day, November 11th, 2020, will be very different than the one we experienced last year when we celebrated the rededication of the Edgar P. Romley Veterans Corner. Despite the difference in this year compared to last year, one thing that has not changed is the love and dedication and support for our veterans across the country as well right here at home. There are many residents in our community who chose the path of service over self, and when they returned home, they continued to choose the path of service. By volunteering on our elected boards, opening businesses, coaching our children, and being upstanding citizens in our community. There is a whole nother generation of residents from Littleton who have chosen the path of service over self and are not home with us here today. Stephen Patterson, Nicole Patterson, Jake Kivlin, Mike Wilson, and James Peterson are just a few of the young adults from our community who are fighting right now for the freedoms and liberties that we enjoy every day. This past year has been very difficult on the world, on the country, and especially right here in our own community. But one thing I want to remind residents is that together we are one. We all share a love for our country, and we all share a love for our community. And without the many sacrifices and service of the men and women in our community and our country, we wouldn't be here today enjoying the freedoms and liberties that we do. And even though those freedoms and liberties have changed and have had to be adjusted because of the pandemic, we still are very, very fortunate to live in the United States of America, and we were even more fortunate to live in the town of Littleton. Thank you again to the many servicemen and women in our community. I know that the words thank you will never be enough. Thank you. God bless.
Here I am at the Littleton Cafe, and in honor of all of the veterans who have served our country, I dedicate these two drum solos to everyone. The first one is called Crazy Army, and it's a very old drum solo. It goes all the way back to the Civil War. And here we go. second one is called The Gray Ghost. It was first played by the Riley Raiders Senior Drum and Bugle Corps from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1958.
I hope today serves to motivate us all with a renewed sense of patriotism, purpose, and pride. For America is truly the best country on earth as a direct result of those who serve it. Thank you to all my brothers and sisters in arms. Today is our day. Now let's enjoy it.